Do you have old home videotapes that you're no longer able to watch? Need them transferred to DVD, Blu-ray, or your smart device? Baltimore Digital offers professional-grade VHS, mini DV, and high 8 digitizing services. We can also convert Super 8mm film too. Baltimore Digital also provides photo restoration services. Visit archive.baltimoredigital.net. Mention code Alexandra for a 10% introductory discount.
Well, that was Adam Ritter. He's a part of the Baltimore Digital. Please reach out to him. He is one of a wonderful media producers that we use here on the Patriot Prayer Network. And he's an up-and-coming media producer, and he can also help you nationwide. Hello, everyone. This is Alexandra 360, my name and my host tonight. This is Alexandra Levine. We'll start that over again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Alexandra 360. I'm your host, Alexandra Levine. So sorry, thrown off by that mini introduction there. That's not usually our introduction. But breaking news. A Hezbollah rocket just hit Nazarene, the birthplace of Jesus, and a sacred site for Christians around the world. Hezbollah are choosing war over peace. Now, today's news is the Israeli Defense Force, IDF. They killed the Hezbollah rocket chief Ibrahim Muhammad Kabisi in Beirut, which is the capital of Lebanon. Israel is considering a ground invasion of Lebanon due to escalating Hezbollah threats. Now, and also further, Hezbollah has asked Iran to attack Israel. As we know, Iran was the face of what happened on October 7th. As we know, on October 7th, 1,200 innocent lives were murdered, burned, and tortured. 101 hostages are now still under Hamas rule in Gaza. And unfortunately, we've had 35 American hostages that are murdered. We have about 7 to 8 American hostages still under Hamas rule in Gaza. And of course, Prime Minister Netanyahu and the IDF are doing everything they can to rescue those hostages and bring them back on American soil. And as we know, unfortunately, we lost an American hostage, Hirsch Goldberg Pollen, and as we know, his family was very vocal about him, and the IDF did everything they could to bring that boy back alive. But unfortunately, Hamas knew that the IDF was coming to get him, and he was shot in the head and murdered in cold blood. And we will honor him, and we will always honor him. But October 7th is coming right around the corner. And nowadays, you know, people are trying to figure out, what are we going to do on this precious day and this precious moment? What we ask everybody to do is memorialize the fallen, memorialize them, pray for the hostages, pray for the rescuing of the hostages. And a bunch of synagogues, Jewish areas all over the nation are coming together to memorialize the fallen and to rally and to stand with Israel. And that's what we need to do. As Jewish Americans, Christian Americans, people of all faiths, we need to stand and support Israel because it is the right thing to do. But look what's going on right now. Israel is fighting Hamas, a terrorist organization. Now Israel is fighting Hezbollah, another terrorist organization. This is all because of the Biden-Harris administration. Let's call a spade a spade. We all know that if President Trump was in the White House, October 7th would have never happened. We all know that President Trump is the most pro-Israel president we've ever had in the history of our nation. We know that the issues that are going on in the Middle East is because of the Biden-Harris administration. We know that Joe Biden has done a lot of deals with Iran, which is why we had an October 7th. And let's call a spade a spade. We also know that Barack Hussein Obama is calling a lot of the shots. Barack Hussein Obama opened up the vacuum to the Arab Spring by bringing the Muslim Brotherhood into the White House. He was the proponent of rising the Taliban. And the Taliban is now on the rise. I mean, we saw the horrific pullout in Afghanistan and why the Taliban is currently on the rise, why Islamic Jihad is on the rise, why we have Gaza encampments all over college campuses nationwide because of these actors that are involved. And now we have this rapper named Macklemore who's writing all these songs about hashtag Free Palestine and giving money to UNRWA. And saying this 1,000% goes to helping the Palestinians forget the IDF. They're committing genocide. My challenge to him is go to Gaza. My challenge to him is go to Lebanon where Hezbollah is and speak these things. See if they will welcome you with open arms, Macklemore. You made your money here in America being a rapper. We as Americans, we went to your concerts. We gave you money, so you're the successful rapper. Now you turn on your biggest ally, Israel, and support terrorists? I challenge we the people not to buy his records anymore, not to listen to his music. It's very important that we call these people out who work and stand with terrorists. Taylor Swift, who just recently endorsed Kamala Harris for president. She went to a dinner that gave donations to the Palestinian people, meaning to Hamas, to Gaza. So did, and I'm forgetting one of her names, one of the other teenage singers that was involved. I think her name is Sonia. I can't remember. But Taylor Swift, this is who is supposed to control the country. She's controlling who to vote for. This is who young people need to listen to. Look at Vice President Kamala Harris's stepdaughter, Ella Emhoff, whose father is Jewish, but she denounces her Judaism, even though she was raised with some Jewish values in her home. She's a professional model. But what does she do? She's raised money for UNRWA. She's done fundraisers for UNRWA. Unbelievable. And these are the people who want to be in the White House. And these are the people that want to run the country and the world. These are the people that say they love Israel. Kamala Harris really loves Israel, wants to stand by Israel. It's a faux pas. And Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and Biden are not doing anything to help bring these hostages back. No, it's Republican congressmen and my Republican governor, Ron DeSantis, that have stood up and taken the lead. Congressman Corey Mills has stepped up and done operations to bring hostages back. My governor, Ron DeSantis, he stepped up to do operations to bring hostages back to Florida. These are real facts. Look at what's going on in Butler, Pennsylvania. Corey Mills again, Joe Biden going above the United States Secret Service and taking matters into his own hands, going to Butler, Pennsylvania, doing investigations on his own. My governor, Ron DeSantis in Florida, taking matters into his own hands, going above the federal government, going above the FBI and doing his own investigation into what happened with the second assassination attempt of President Trump's life at Mar-a-Lago. Because Governor Ron DeSantis knows that he can do a better investigation than the FBI can, and President Trump agrees with that as well. And President Trump actually feels more confident with Governor Ron DeSantis getting to the crux of what happened and really putting this guy in jail for a long time and possibly giving him the death penalty. Because the FBI isn't going to do anything. We find out this guy, Ryan Routh, is a CIA operative. He got paid $150,000 to fly from Hawaii to Florida. He's been planning this for months, apparently, to kill President Trump. And he was on the FBI's radar for a while, for years, they said. Unbelievable. But this is the time, everyone. This is the time to come together. This is the time to stand with Israel. This is the time. Jewish Americans, Jewish Democrats, Jewish independents, to say we have had enough of the Democrat Party. We're voting Republican. We're voting with President Trump because he stands with me. He supports what I support. And he understands that if, God forbid, Kamala Harris gets in, it would be very hard for Jewish Americans to live in this country safely. President Trump did say that Israel may not exist in 2 years under Kamala Harris. Now, Israel is a very strong country. They have one of the strongest armies in the world, strongest navy. But they do need their biggest ally, America, to help them. Bibi Netanyahu said, if we have to go it alone, we will go it alone. But he doesn't want to, and he shouldn't have to. That's why it's very important that we have the proper person in leadership. And that's why it is very important that President Trump is back in that White House. Because if not, our ally Israel is doomed. Now, I can tell you that the IDF has planned for 2 years in the operation that they did with the pagers and the walkie-talkies. They worked on that for 2 years to put that together. And a lot of people said, well, the IDF, they killed innocent civilians. Let me remind you that these terrorists, they put their own civilians in harm's way. They've done it in Gaza. They've done it in Lebanon. They do it all day and all night. The Israeli people do not want to kill innocent civilians. They are not Hamas. They are not a terrorist organization. That is not their goal. Their goal, again, is to annihilate the enemy once and for all. And again, Israel is such a small country. It's the size of New Jersey, or even less than that. It's a very small country. And they're surrounded by all these Arab nations, and they're surrounded by Arab nations that have terrorist organizations that are ingrained in them. Think about the battles that Israel is facing right now. They're just trying to survive. They're facing the battle with Hamas. They're facing the battle with Hezbollah. They got Iran knocking on their door. They're dealing with Islamic Jihad, Al-Aqsa Smarter Brigade, Taliban. They're dealing with them all. Think about it. And all these rappers and all these singers. Think about it when you say #Free Palestine, and think about who you're endorsing and who you're standing by. J-Lo and Julia Roberts and George Clooney and Ben Stiller. Really think about it. Because a lot of Americans are going to stop going to your movies. They're going to stop supporting you because you're not on the right side of history. You're on the wrong side of history. You don't even know why you're supporting Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. You're just doing it because they called you up and said, hey, we need your money. We need your support. You know that under President Trump, things were good. And you guys are multimillionaires. Some of you actors are even close to being billionaires. Remember, you were all friends with President Trump before he decided to come down the escalator at Trump Tower and say, hey, I'm running for president as a Republican. And then you all turned on him. Chuck Schumer, you were friends with him. Hillary Clinton, you were friends with him too. You all were friends with him until he said, I'm running as president of the United States as a Republican. And then President Trump found out who his real friends are. Guess who his real friends are? We the people that go to his rallies, the people that have stood by him through and through, his true loyalists. I'm a true loyalist to President Trump. I've been a hardcore Trump supporter from the very beginning, even before 2015. I support the man. I endorse the man. And I can tell you, things were a lot better under his leadership. Women and men of today are very depressed, and I'll get into that later, under this Biden administration, which has done nothing to help us, especially my generation and the Gen Zers. So Mr. Macklemore and Taylor Swift and J-Lo and all these people that endorse Kamala Harris, enjoy it now. Enjoy it now. Because remember, President Trump signed the executive order that says that you can keep your royalties. So every time Taylor Swift, your song gets put on the radio, anytime Macklemore, your song gets put on the radio because of President Trump, you get to keep your royalties. Don't forget that. After the break coming up, we have a very special guest, Dr. Michael Goldstein. He's running for CD4 in Connecticut against the incumbent Democrat, Jim Hines. We'll see him right after the break.
Born in the coastal plains of South Texas, Smoking Gun Coffee is founded by combat veterans that know exactly what a cup of coffee needs to taste like. Run by father and son, each coffee bean is perfected, roasted at 500 degrees, and cooled with a Gulf Coast breeze. Smoking Gun Coffee hand makes and bags each ounce of coffee for maximum customer satisfaction. With every purchase, 10% goes back to organizations that help veterans and local communities. That's Texas made, one bag at a time. To find out more, go to www.smokingguncoffee.com.
Hello, everyone. We're back. I'm Alexandra Levine with Alexandra 360. Please go to smokingguncoffee.com. That website is right down on the marquee. You can go to Alexandra-360-coffee-club-free-free shipping. Get your medium roast and your dark roast. The best part of waking up is Alexandra 360 in your cup. Right now, we have Dr. Michael Goldstein. We're going to bring him up. He's running for CD4 in Connecticut against Democrat incumbent Jim Hines. He's a physician and an attorney, and he's running to A, reduce healthcare costs, secure our border, restore our economy and energy independence, protect parental and individual rights, and of course, fight anti-Semitism and hate speech. Dr. Goldstein is a renowned physician, and he's also Jewish, and we welcome him onto the program. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's fun. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Awesome. So, Dr. Goldstein, tell my audience a little bit about yourself and what got you involved in politics.
Sure. So I started out in life as a doctor, an eye surgeon, actually an ophthalmologist. And like everybody else, you go along, you raise your family, you work hard, that's what America's all about. And, as time goes on, suddenly I went to law school later in life. And after I got out of law school, a friend of mine said, I'm going to get you involved in the New York County Medical Society. Even though I live in Connecticut, I work in New York. I'm like many people around here, we commute. And so I moved myself up the ladder. I got to experience politics. We went to meet with legislators. We went to their offices. We went to the state capitol of Albany to meet with them. I got to go to all these political events that were sponsored mostly by Democrats. And I got to see how the system doesn't really work. And the most important lesson I learned is that if you don't have a lot of money or you don't represent a lot of voters, you have no power. And the people that do have the power, run politics in a way that works for them and doesn't necessarily work for we the people. And it certainly didn't work. For our healthcare system.
That's 100% correct. I'm glad you got into the healthcare system. So you decided not to get the vaccine, which is about half of the American people. And I remember listening on your Rumble channel, your medical exemption was denied. And that was really tough because I was trying to get medical exemption and religious exemption for a lot of my friends that worked in the government, and they were also denied. You also wrote the famous book and dissertation, The Unvaccinated Physician. Tell us about that and that process.
So what happened was I had applied for medical exemption. I had a valid reason to have one, and they didn't give it to me. And I was faced with two choices. One was to get vaccinated so I could continue being a surgeon, or don't get vaccinated and have one hospital forced me to resign. The other one suspended me, and I couldn't operate for 2 years. And I could only go into my office and see patients. I couldn't really do anything else. And I decided that I was going to listen to my doctors, that I wasn't going to be forced to do something that I didn't think I should be forced to do. And I acted in what I believed was the best interest of my own personal health. And I did not get vaccinated. I did get COVID on more than one occasion. I survived. I didn't get really that sick. And as a lot of people got COVID and didn't get very sick. And so I had natural immunity, and it made even less sense to me to be forced to be vaccinated when there was a valid medical reason not to. And I believe that natural immunity is something that should be, should apply. I mean, if you have the measles, you don't need a measles vaccine. If you had chickenpox, you don't need a chickenpox vaccine. But if you have COVID, you still need a COVID vaccine. I'm not really sure what the logic is.
I agree with you on that. And I can say a lot of studies have come out about the side effects of the vaccine, particularly in young men ages 18 to 39. They're experiencing, with 2 shots of the mRNA, myocarditis, brain aneurysms, heart attacks, strokes. In young women, it's been very hard for them to conceive children. And we're finding out that women that went through menopause after they got the mRNA shots, now all of a sudden they're bleeding like they have a period again. And nobody told us this in the beginning. Of course, we're finding this out after the fact. Do you believe under a, God forbid, Kamala Harris, Tim Walz administration, that they'll bring back these vaccine mandates?
Well, it's interesting when you listen to people that are, pro-life, they have this line, my body, my choice. But when it comes to vaccines, it's not your body, not your choice. So it seems that alone is hypocritical. And I really think that as a general principle, when politics, controls healthcare rather than science, I think it sends us way in the wrong direction.
So I would say that you agree with, the RFK Jr. statement, make America healthy again. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well,
I
agree with you. We should all be healthy. Why should we be unhealthy? That makes no sense.
Exactly. And, living in your state of Connecticut and being a doctor, how was it for you, not being vaccinated, to kind of, break that fourth wall with people around you that are vaccinated?
Well, most people I met were okay, and they didn't care that much. There was a small percent that didn't want us to come to their house, didn't really want us to visit them, didn't want to be anywhere near us because we weren't vaccinated. But, I think that that's their prerogative. But if you think about it just for a second, if the purpose of a COVID vaccine was to give you immunity so that you wouldn't get COVID, then being exposed to somebody that even had COVID shouldn't be a problem for you. But that's not that kind of thinking didn't seem to follow through. It didn't really make any sense, because that's not what was going on. And the reality is that people who were vaccinated, many of them had COVID, and most of the people who had COVID were in fact vaccinated. The second point is that COVID vaccines did not, prevent you from spreading it, because some people who had the vaccines had less severe cases of COVID, and then but they were carriers. They still had the virus in their bodies, and they were transmitting it. So a lot of the things just didn't make a lot of sense. And if you looked at the statistics on the number of people that got really sick in the younger populations, it was extremely small, and yet they were mandating the vaccines. And then the problem is, you talked about myocarditis, and myocarditis is real. And to this day, we really don't know the actual numbers of how many young people actually got sick, or even worse, or even died or had permanent heart damage from myocarditis. The data is not really there, and so we still don't know. So or maybe there is data and it's being withheld. It's sort of I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're going to shift to foreign policy, because in the beginning of my segment, I talked a lot about Israel, the conflict right now going with Israel and the terrorist organization Hezbollah. Explain your position on Israel, and if you were in Congress today, how would you handle the war?
Well, first of all, I'm a strong supporter of Israel. I think that Israel is surrounded by people who want to destroy them. There's a religious sect of the Muslim religion that is advocated by the Muslim Brotherhood, which really began in the 1920s, and they believe that the only people that should be living in what they would call Muslim land and being controlled are Muslims, and that their plan and desire is to actually kill all the Jews in Israel. And they were also Nazi collaborators during World War II. These people for almost 100 years have had one goal: kill all the Jews in Israel. So if you have somebody that wants to kill you, and then they have the semi-autonomous state of Gaza, where they kind of ran it themselves and elected their leaders, and they didn't really focus on prosperity. They focused on the same goal of killing the Jews in Israel. And then when they finally breached the barrier and came into Israel, they didn't come to fight a war. They didn't come to fight an army, fighting an army of liberation. They came for one purpose: to kill any Jews they could get their hands on. And so these are barbarians, and they did it in a barbaric way. And 75% of the people that live in Gaza subscribe to the theory and were perfectly okay with killing all the Jews that they did, and they had no problem with what happened on October 7th. This is totally an unacceptable situation, and Israel certainly cannot be weak in dealing with people that want to murder them. Otherwise they'll all be dead.
So, Dr. Goldstein, are you dealing with any of these Gaza encampments happening at any universities in your district of Connecticut right now currently?
Not in my district, but nearby at Yale, New Haven. Yale has had these problems, and the people that are doing this are not only students. There's also these fringe groups, these terrorist groups. There were left-wing groups like SDS, Black Panthers, Black Lives Matter, among some of the others. There's also foreign students that have come here from the Middle East who are part of this story, and I think that the universities, by allowing this to happen, are demonstrating what I would call vicious and vile anti-Semitism.
Now, do you agree that we should be giving money and aid to Israel? And do you agree with what President Trump says, that if he were in power today, he would actually pull the funding from some of those universities that support these Gaza encampments and these terrorist organizations?
Well, I agree with him on both counts. First of all, of course, we should be giving money to Israel. By the way, even if you hated Israel, The only ally, the strongest ally that we have in the Middle East against our worst enemy, which is Iran. And Iran doesn't really only want to go against Israel, which they call the little Satan. They want to go against the United States. Okay. So now you have a country that's the enemy of the United States. Israel is the strongest country in the Middle East to fight them. Why in the world would you want to weaken your strongest ally against your worst enemy in a region? That makes absolutely no sense.
I agree with you. We're going to shift to the economy in Connecticut because a lot of our viewers don't know. But I can tell you the economy in Connecticut and across the nation is terrible right now, especially in your district under this incumbent congressman, Mr. Hines, who's been there for far too long. Under a Biden-Harris administration, as we know, the economy is just horrendous. What is your plan for fixing the economy in your district?
Okay. Well, the first part of it is, I mean, this is the only time in American history where we had a government-induced energy shortage. The Biden administration created an energy shortage, which ultimately resulted in raising the price of oil, heating oil, natural gas, gasoline. It created an inflation, and it was all based on this theory of that somehow there's this earth-shattering emergency to suddenly decarbonize the United States. And the idea makes no sense if you look at the system geopolitically, if you look at what's going on, if you look at what's really happening in the world. This argument is so incredibly flawed. So, for example, in 2006, the United States and China produced the same amount of carbon. By 2022, U.S. carbon production was down by 25%. China's had doubled. So by 2022, China was producing 3 times as much CO2 emissions as the United States, and their usage is rising rapidly. And I would guess, looking at the curves, that by 2030, China is going to be producing half the world's carbon, and they're not subject to any Paris Peace Accords. So if we're going to go suddenly get rid of gas stoves and do all these other ridiculous things compared to the amount of that's spewing out of China, the amount that's coming out of India, the amount that's coming out of all the third world countries, our numbers are relatively small. And it's certainly, to destroy our economy, to have a relatively small effect on worldwide CO2 production is national suicide. The second point is that by producing larger amounts of oil and natural gas, we could control the market. We could actually we could generate income for ourselves. We could also drive the price of these commodities down, lower the price of worldwide costs of oil, crude oil, lower the cost of natural gas, and that would weaken the economies of countries like Iran and Russia that need that money to fight their wars. So, and also countries would be more dependent on us for natural gas and for oil, which would also give us geopolitical advantages. So we have this great opportunity to turn our energy into both a political and economic weapon, and instead we suddenly want to become dependent on oil from Venezuela, from Russia, from maybe even Iran, and who the heck knows where else we might get it from. This is national suicide. This is incredibly poor thinking.
I 100% agree with you. And most people can't even afford electronic cars. It's ridiculous. I'm down in Texas a lot with former Congressman Louis Gohmert, and he said they want to push electronic cars in my District 1 of Texas. Most people can't afford that. Farmers definitely can't afford that. And it's ridiculous. And it's all about drill, baby, drill, like President Trump has said and many others. Sarah Palin said it as well in Alaska. And we were energy independent under President Trump. And then with a sweep of a pen, Biden and Kamala made it so we're not energy independent anymore. Our last question to you, Dr. Goldstein, how do we go back to Judeo-Christian principles? And what is your message to women to vote Republican, to minorities such as Jews and Blacks and single people? How can we get our young people, our Gen Zers, to vote Republican and never look back?
Okay, well, the first part of it is, in terms of young people, they have never had it worse, at least in the recent past, except maybe during a Great Depression, than they have it now. They've been overburdened by student debts, and no one has ever done like cost benefit analysis of really, like, when you pay tuition, where's your money really going, and are you getting your money's worth? And the reality is that probably only about a quarter of the money somebody pays in tuition pays the professors, and the rest goes to the infrastructure, to the administrators, and there's so many of them, and to all kinds of other costs. And so, that's the first part. So they're stuck with this huge debt, and the prices of college tuition is too high. The second point is that interest rates are high now, so they want to be able to buy a house. It's harder to buy a house when interest rates are higher, and because of a weak economy, the opportunities for them to get good jobs has been taken away. And then you add all of the extra infrastructure, education, and healthcare costs of whatever number of illegal people have entered this country, whether it's 10 million or 20 million, and suddenly, the future doesn't look particularly good. So you want an administration that's going to lower interest rates, that's going to curb inflation, that's going to create jobs, and so that you have a chance to actually have a better life. And that's the first step. The other problem in a lot of the cities, like for example, our poorest city in my district is Bridgeport, and their school system is atrocious. It rates like 161 out of 165 in the state of Connecticut. And it's not because they're not spending money on education. It's a horrible system. And one of the things that I like to tell people is, the Democrats are always accusing Republicans of being racist. But if you're betraying young people and denying them a future and denying them a good education and shortchanging them in those ways, then you're the ones that are really racist. And the worst school systems in our state are actually in Democrat-run cities like Bridgeport. And one of the things that's really necessary in these school districts is school choice. And one of the things that we encountered when we were in Bridgeport, and I was one of only two Republicans to march in the Puerto Rican Day Parade there, was that people are taking second jobs so they can send their kids to private or parochial schools because they want them to have a better chance. But wouldn't it be a lot nicer if the money just followed the student and they didn't have to do that? They wouldn't have to work so hard that they don't have time to be with their kids, and their kids could still get a good education, and that the money isn't thrown into a school system that's not really doing its job. And of course, maybe if the school system had to compete, maybe they do a lot better job. And so I think that hope is through better education. Hope is through a stronger economy. Hope is also for a general belief and a psychological belief that we're a united country with a bright future, rather than this divided, polarized country where everybody's fighting against each other.
So Dr. Goldstein, just one more minute before we go on the break, and this minute goes to you. Why should the people of your district vote for you? And please tell us how we can get in touch with you and how we can donate to your campaign. Throughout the entire show tonight, we are featuring your website, goldsteinforcongress.com. But please, this is your moment to tell us.
Okay. Well, if you want to turn America around, if you want someone that's actually going to fight for you, rather than somebody who's a political individual whose main goal is to advance their own career in Washington rather than to represent you, then I'm the person you want to vote for. If you want somebody that's going to try to make the roads work better, to cut healthcare costs, make the system better, to fight for you in law and close our borders, stop illegal immigration, reduce our crime, deport criminals that are here illegally. If you want somebody that's going to go to work for you, who's not looking for a career, who's not a professional politician, then I'm the person that you should be voting for. I'm here to fight for you. I've grown up in one of the greatest countries in the world, and I think for it to stay that way, we need people that care about this country and people that are willing to work for the citizens of their district.
That is beautiful. Again, everyone go to goldsteinforcongress.com. Is there any other social media platforms we can follow you on?
Sure. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. If you go, we have a Substack where we send out lots of articles. We write about all kinds of stuff.
And do you have any events coming up? Any campaign events coming up?
Well, we're always we're always all over the place, and we don't have any. I'm going to be actually going to a debate in a synagogue on Sunday, where actually my opponent is also going to show up, and they're going to have some other politicians. I'm going to be doing something similar like that in a school in Ridgefield, Connecticut, later in October. I was supposed to go to an event on Friday, which was canceled, and we'll check on our website where we want to reach out, and if you're in the district and you want to help organize an event with us, I'm happy to come and visit and talk to people. I am somebody that goes around and talks to people wherever I can, and we just keep going to. We have like a whole schedule of events, and we're having a fundraiser in New York. coming up on the 9th of October. And we're just out there getting our message out, going to the people. Mine is a grassroots-based campaign. We certainly can use volunteers. If you want to volunteer, come to the website. Donations would be great. I'm going against, super well-funded, incumbent congressman, and he's always going to have a lot more money than I have. I have the people, and I want the people behind me so that we can change this country.
And I do just want to take the record, because I'm a Floridian, but I give to people outside of my district, outside of my state, and our audience is nationwide. I do encourage all my audience members, whether you're in Connecticut or not, donate to this man, give him a donation. I know that he resonates with a lot of the values that you have on this program, that you listen to on this program, on this network. So please, everyone on the Patriots Prayer Network, regardless if you're in Connecticut or not, go to this man's website and give a donation to him.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, Dr. Goldstein. Love to have you on again. It was a pleasure. And maybe closer to the election, we'd love to have you on again as a follow-up.
That would be great. Hopefully we'll have some really good news, and we'll have more things to talk about the next time.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And we will be right back right after the break.
America faces challenges like never before. Economic uncertainty, social unrest, debt implosion. The foundations of our freedom are under attack. To restore strength, prosperity, and the American way of life, Trump must win.
I plan to ensure that the United States will be the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world.
Introducing the Trump token, blending the deflationary model of Bitcoin with the technological advancement of Solana. It's more than just a cryptocurrency. It's America's future medium of exchange. The Trump token pledges to donate 50% of proceeds, up to $50 million, to Trump's 2024 re-election campaign. Join the movement. Stand with Trump. Secure your future at thetrumptoken.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Alexandra 360. I am your host, Alexandra Levine. We just had a wonderful guest, Dr. Michael Goldstein. He's running for Congress in CD4 in Connecticut. And please go to his website, goldsteinforcongress.com. Give him a donation, regardless if you live in Connecticut or not. Every little bit helps. I know that he resonates with the majority of the people that follow my broadcast, the majority of the people that subscribe to the Patriots Prayer. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Patriots Prayer. We're huge on Rumble at the Patriots Prayer Network at Rumble, YouTube at the Patriots Prayer, on X at the Patriots Prayer. You can also follow me on X at Alexandra LEVI20, at Alexandra Levine on Facebook. We're also on Facebook at the Patriots Prayer. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're interested in sponsoring our show or any of the shows on the network, please let us know and drop us a line. But please go to goldsteinforcongress.com. His marquee will be flashing throughout the rest of the broadcast and, of course, on the repeated shows. So I want to talk about an event that I went to last Saturday at Trump's winery in Charlottesville, Virginia. It was a rally for Virginia women, and it was about 2,000 women that gathered. Here is one picture of one of the organizers. Her name is Ruse. There we go. And we had 2,000 women gathered at Trump's winery to rally for President Trump. And our headliner was Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. She's coming up at the next slide. There she is. And it's funny, I was also wearing a pink blazer that event as well. And there's also a picture of me coming up with myself in front of her. I had the pleasure of talking with her. There we go. There I am, right up at the front to the left. My friend Heather is to the right. She actually took the picture. I'm sorry that my friend Heather's face got cut out, but I have the full picture on my Facebook and my X, and all on my YouTube channels and so forth, and my social media channels. But Elise Stefanik is a congresswoman from the state of New York. She is extremely pro-Israel. And one of the biggest things she and I talked about was how pro-Israel she is and how she stands with Israel. And that became a big focal point of her speech. But not also that we have to stand with our biggest ally, Israel, as she said. And she gave the famous testimony in front of all those three deans at the university, or excuse me, not the deans, the presidents at the university, or Harvard University, excuse me, MIT University and at UPenn, and she has been astronomical in getting those presidents and those deans removed from colleges that support calling for that support students calling for the genocide of Jews. And I think the Rutgers University president, he stepped down. Columbia University president has just recently stepped down. I mean, these are liberal colleges that have a lot of Jewish students that attend there, and they're screaming out, hashtag Free Palestine, and they're calling for the genocide of Jews, which completely goes against the Student Code of Conduct. And Congresswoman Elise Stefanik was astronomical in calling that out. And she made a big stink about it, that a lot of the big donors to these universities pulled out. And as a result, these deans and these presidents were asked to step down, resign, or some of them were even fired. So they're off the payroll. But it's really important to note that 2,000 women from the entire state of Virginia, and even Maryland, because I came from Maryland, because I have a place in Montgomery County, Maryland, in Silver Spring, came to this rally to rally for President Trump. President Trump is coming so hard right now for the women vote, and not just Republican women, Democrat women especially, single women, divorced women, women that come from divorced homes, women that come from homes that their fathers and mothers were former drug addicts. He's also reaching out to young women that have been abused by their fathers, by their brothers, that have been abused by illegals. There's a lot of illegals coming into this country that are abusing young women. They're killing American citizens. And we see this on the news. It has been heavily, heavily reported. President Trump has also been involved with a lot of those families where a lot of the young girls, the young women have been raped, have been murdered, have been tortured, have been killed. President Trump has also been with the victims' families of October 7th. So he's been surrounded by all these people. But the headliner was Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. She and many others in attendance agreed that President Trump is the right candidate for women. My friend, Melissa Roby, she's been on our show. She's the founder of We Back Blue, which is a nationwide organization which supports the police and memorializes the fallen. I'm also a brand ambassador for We Back Blue, as well as Tim Fazenbaker, who's also been on our network. You can go to timfazenbaker.com. He's the elected official in Baltimore County that I've worked with and that I've had on this network. And Tim and I and Melissa, we've all done rallies together. We've done vigils together for fallen officers. And she was one of the organizers of this rally with Ruse and with my friend Naomi. And I thank Melissa Roby for inviting me to this event. And she was the one that organized all the buses to come as well. And Melissa Roby said, and I quote her, she believes a Donald Trump win is a win for all women. And I agree with that. I wholeheartedly agree with that. So the question to me by a reporter, because I was interviewed, is why is President Trump good for women? Why? Well, let me tell you why. President Trump signed up very well in a truth on Truth Social that he wrote. And I have a lot of single female friends. I have a lot of divorced female friends. I'm not married myself. And I can tell you things are very different now than under President Trump. And he said, and this resonates, this is for all women, regardless of political party. He said, quote, women are poorer than they were 4 years ago, are less healthy. And I can tell you a lot of my girlfriends are going to the doctor more than ever. I have a lot of friends that are suffering from chronic migraines and headaches under Biden and Harris. And a lot of young girls don't feel safe anymore on the streets. And that has to do with the illegal immigrants that are raping the women on the streets. They're killing them. It has to do with the situation in Aurora, Colorado, where you have illegals banging on your door like they're the managers of your apartment complex, kicking you out. In my apartment complex, it is very safe. We have a 24/7 guarded and gated community. I live in a gated community, Baruch Hashem, praise be to God. But a lot of apartment complexes don't have that. But I can tell you that my apartment complex has gotten even stricter on who comes in and out of the complex, because there has been some vigilantes that have come onto my building and they just start knocking on the doors. There was one guy that actually got a master key to my apartment and opened it up without my knowledge and without my consent. That's not cool. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know if he was a part of the apartment complex, but that's not cool. If the owner does not give you the consent to come into your apartment, you do not get a master key and you do not open their door and come in. If somebody knocks on the door and I don't open it or I don't want to open it, you leave my door alone. It is my home. Because, and Kamala Harris said, you never know what's going to be on the end of that. She even said, you come to my house unannounced, you're going to get shot. I don't know if I believe that coming from her. She claims she's a gun owner. I don't believe that. She said she wants to take your guns. But your home is sacred. And if you're paying rent and you own that place, unless you know the person knocking on your door and you allow them in, they shouldn't just be allowed to come in without permission. But I can tell you, I do not feel safe walking the streets of New York, of Maryland, of even some areas in some southern states like Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. It's very unsafe out there. Unless you carry a firearm or you have some kind of protection or you've learned Krav Maga, which is Israeli self-defense, or done karate or taekwondo. As a woman, you should never be alone. Always have a man with you that has experience in fighting, maybe military experience. I have a lot of friends that are in the government that are former military. They always hang with me. I always have friends that concealed carry with them. They always go to certain areas with me if I don't feel safe. Under President Trump, we were safe. Women were safe. President Trump also says that women are more unhappy and depressed, which is very true. A lot of my friends that I talk to are very unhappy and depressed because they're losing their jobs. They're unmarried. They're not having kids. The dating scene is very tough. A lot of young men and women are afraid to get married right now because they don't have enough money, they feel, to provide. They're losing their jobs to illegals, and they don't feel they have enough money to have children. And President Trump said a lot of women are less optimistic and confident in the future. I agree with that too. I would feel less optimistic and confident in the future if I'm dating a guy for 2 years or 4 years and he hasn't put a ring on my finger and he doesn't want to discuss our future and he's afraid to discuss our future. Or he goes down to meet your parents and your parents ask the gentleman, so are you going to marry my daughter this year? Are you going to marry him next? Are you going to marry her next year? And the gentleman says to your father, I don't know. That's not good. How can a woman feel optimistic and confident in her future when the guy that she's been dating for so long says to your father, I don't know when I'm going to marry her or not. I don't know. And that's because he's afraid of commitment. That's because, and a lot of women are afraid of commitment too. There's commitment issues around the board between people ages 22, I'm finding, to 45. There's a lot of single 40-year-olds nowadays. There's a lot of single 35-year-olds nowadays. That didn't happen under President Trump. Under President Trump, everybody was getting married. Everybody was having children. Everybody was happy. Everybody had money. I'm in the healthcare profession. Kamala Harris said that she's going to get rid of private healthcare insurance. Well, that messes up anyone in the healthcare profession. That means, quote, Medicare for all. Government controls your healthcare. Government controls your life. Now we're having this gender reaffirming surgery that's been enacted in states such as Minnesota, where a 3-year-old who's a girl can say, I really want to be a boy, can go to the doctor and say, let's have the surgery, I want to be a boy, without parental consent. That's under Tim Walz, by the way. This is crazy, where the child is now the parent. What happened to the concept that kids are seen and not heard? What happened to the 5th commandment, honor thy father and mother? That's in the Old Testament. That's Judeo-Christian values. Honor thy father and mother. What happened to that? It's non-existent. A child is now deciding what they want to do with their bodies. A child says to their parent, screw you. I'm going to decide what I want to do with my body. I don't need your guidance. No wonder parents don't want to have kids. I talk to a lot of married couples and single couples that don't want to have kids. They're scared. They're scared because of the gender identity curriculum that's being forced down children's throats in certain states. They're scared that their kids are going to wake up and say, I want to be a cat. Identify as a dog. I'm a girl, but I really want to be a boy. And they have to accept that? Because if not, the government will come in and guess what? They'll take your child away from you. They'll say you're a bad parent. You're not allowed to parent anymore under a Biden-Harris administration. Under a Kamala Harris-Tim Walz administration, you will not be allowed to parent anymore. Less people will be getting married. More women will be depressed. More women will make less money. More women will be unhappy. And that's when suicides happen. When you're depressed and unhappy, that's when suicides happen. When you lose your job to an illegal, it's depressing. When Kamala Harris and Tim Walz say, we don't want to go back, what the heck are they talking about? What don't we want to go back to? Don't we want to go back to medical freedom? Don't we want to go back to our constitutional freedoms, our freedom of speech, our freedom of the press, our freedom of religion? Don't we want to go back to where parents have a say in their child's curriculum and their child's bodies and life? Don't we want to go back to lower taxes and low gas prices? And when we all can afford toilet paper and a hairbrush? Don't we all want to go back to when things were better and we all could go on vacations and look nice and smell nice and feel nice and be happy? That's what I want to go back to. I don't want to move forward to this socialist communist regime that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to do to our country. And Jewish people know better. After the Holocaust, they came here through a sponsor because they just dealt with socialism and communism. They came here for freedom. They came to America for a better life. The Democrat Party of FDR, Harry Truman, and JFK does not exist anymore. This new Democrat Party, this socialist communist party, will take you back to World War II. Put your differences aside about how you feel about President Trump and think about your life and how you want your children to live. My parents are very scared for their grandchildren under a Kamala Harris, Tim Walz presidency. I'm scared for my future under a Kamala Harris, Tim Walz presidency. As a woman, I feel safer under President Trump. As a woman, I have more opportunities under President Trump. As a woman, more men will be committed to be getting married and having children because they will have more money and they will be more successful. As a woman, I won't have to ask a man out for a date under President Trump. But that's what's happening now. The women have to ask the men for a date. The women have to follow through. The women have to initiate. And that's depressing and it's causing women to be unhappy. It's time for women to be happy. Remember, happy wife, happy life? We want the women to be happy again. That's why women need to vote Republican. Women need to vote for President Trump so they can be happy and less depressed. And the single men will be happy and less depressed. And they'll get married. They'll meet their beshert, which in Hebrew means their soulmate. And they won't be so stressed of the other things around them, and they will focus on the one thing that matters. God put man and woman on this earth to procreate, to have children from generation to generation. Those are the values we need to get back to. Those are the values we're missing. And it's because the Democrats have convinced us that we don't need those values anymore. That a woman doesn't need to get married. Man doesn't need to get married. Men and women don't need to have children. No. If you can have children, have children. If you want to get married, go get married. But you can stop this. We as voters can stop this nonsense that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to do to our country and to the world. Again, 2,000 women were in support of President Trump in Virginia, and Virginia is a state that President Trump can possibly win. And they're looking to flip that Senate seat to put Hung Chow in office, and they're looking to put to put John McGuire in as the new congressman to replace the incumbent. Look at what's at stake here, guys. Look at what's at stake. I'm going to pound the message until November 5th. Jewish Americans need to vote for President Trump. Minorities, all minorities need to vote for President Trump. Now women, divorced women, suburban women, single women, women that come from broken homes. We must vote for President Trump. Get yourself out of that depression. Get yourself out of that unhappiness. Again, what did President Trump say? Under Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Actually, I should say under Biden and Kamala Harris. Women are poorer. Women are less healthy. Women are less safe. Women are more unhappy and depressed, less optimistic and less confident in the future. President Trump said, I will be your protector. He wants to be a protector for women. Let him be that father figure for you. Let him be your protector. If you felt lost, if you felt like your father wasn't there for you, your grandfather wasn't there for you, your brother wasn't there for you, your husband wasn't there for you, let Trump be that man that's there for you. Because you know he was there for you when he was in the White House, and you know that you were happier under him, you were more optimistic under him, you got married under him, you had children under him, you were more confident under him. That's why more women are going to vote for him. But it's up to you women, especially the Democrat women, the single women, the divorced women, the women that have had horrible lives. The women that have been raped. It is up to you to get out of that depression and stand up and rise up. And stop being unhappy. And let's stop being poor. And let's be more optimistic. And if you want to walk on the streets freely, you know that under a President Trump presidency, he will make sure that those illegals are out and that you can walk those streets freely. So I challenge the women of this country today to vote the right way. I challenge women today to do the right thing. To put your feelings aside of however you feel about President Trump and realize that he is there to protect you and to help you. He wants to protect you and help you. He's a father himself. He's a grandfather. He's raised wonderful children. He has helped them succeed and thrive. I look up to his daughter, Ivanka. She has been my inspiration to succeed. Look at Ivanka. Look at what she's done in the world and in the country. And how she made a billionaire business on her own. Her father helped her and gave her some guidance, but she did it on her own. Tiffany Trump became an attorney on her own. Married a very well-to-do man on her own. She did it on her own. Laura Trump found Eric Trump. Now she's the RNC co-chairwoman. She's doing it on her own. Look at the women around President Trump, how they've done it on their own. Now it's time for you to take a stand in that ballot box and decide who is going to be there for you in the end. Who is going to protect you? It's going to be President Trump. We've had a great hour tonight, guys. A great hour. We had a great guest. Don't forget to go to goldsteinforcongress.com. Give him a donation. He's running for Congress in CD4 in Connecticut. Please go to smokingguncoffee.com/product/Alexandra-360-coffee-club-free-shipping and get your medium roast or your dark roast. Again, we say the best part of waking up is Alexandra 360 in your cup. And again, guys, the reason you listen, oh my gosh, what's going on with me tonight? The reason you listen and the reason you watch is you are no idiot.